Can you all hear me? Can you all hear me?
Cool.
Okay, I'll take that as a yes. I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. House Prop argues that Africa's ties with China creates Chinese diplomacy, but it does not acknowledge what Chinese diplomacy implies. Countries such as the US, which are major powerhouses economically speaking, as they stated, would not be as attracted to African markets if they know that they are also battling Chinese markets in the same space. Furthermore, they argue that this would increase our Africa's buying power with European and American foreign nationals if we do so. However, they do not consider the implication that these ties could simply be cut. Also, another issue that comes into that is that if these ties are in fact cut, this will create further economic instability in those countries. Next, they argue that it creates labor jobs, which I don't believe is the most important industry to tackle in Africa. Africa, especially South Africa, heavily relies on mining and agriculture as sources of employment, and still faces the issues that we just faced. The addition of employment of labor jobs does not actually develop what the country is able to do. What the country needs to do to develop its economy is increase its ability to manufacture and process its items, which Chinese investments are not doing. They're focusing mainly on giving labor jobs, as they said. They believe that this is anti-colonialist if they work with China rather than other nations. And they also falsely claim that we are against all existing bonds. What our house is arguing is further ties being created with China in order to develop Africa. The idea that it's anti-colonialist and that the genocide going on in China is now irrelevant purely because other countries have done it in the past is actually a terrible argument, if I may be frank, for the reason that it disregards the lives of people who are being affected by these labor violations that China is causing. What House Op has argued is that what China is doing for Africa is in turn beneficial because it gives jobs and it's better than other European ties that Africa already has and will do more for the country because those ties have been quote unquote tainted. But these tainted ties have had a lot more progress than we have with China. What we have with China is a brand new relationship of which the risks and threats we do not know yet. And so I ask House Proposition if they think it's better to invest in something unknown rather than developing its current investments and developing the people in the country in order to bring to a higher spot. They also claim that our argument means that Africa in itself has not done anything to develop itself, but they disregard the effects of colonialism in the sense. Many of the countries they mentioned, such as Japan and South Korea, had histories of colonialization, but their work was not purely their own. They had to have strict leaders who came into power to turn these countries around. And so their power did not only come from Chinese investments per se, their power came from their leaders that they were appointed. And so the focus of this argument should not be China developing Africa, making Africa a superpower, because China cannot do that. China will not do that because China is focused on keeping themselves their own superpower. The only people who can truly affect Africa are Africans and the reliable ties that they have to develop the country further. Furthermore, I would just like to add on to the point of my previous speaker by just dissecting how by being so reliant on foreign countries, it takes away the responsibilities of officials in these countries. By relying on China in this way, they're able to get away with the corruption, which has led to our countries not developing as quickly. And so as my closing statement, I would like to say that although House Proposition did present valid arguments to be considered, I do not believe that Chinese investment in Africa should be something that we aspire for. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Um, okay. Am I audible? Okay, I'll assume I am.
Yes, yes, you are.
Okay, perfect. I'll begin my speech in
Sorry, just
three.
before you get going, are the judges ready? Because I just answered for the chair. The chair would normally answer that question.
Oh, sorry.
I'm ready on my
Okay.
side.
All right. So yeah, please start your speech.
Okay, perfect. I'll begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. Now, side opposition loses this debate from their first speaker when they generalize the idea of investment. We asked side opposition to prove to us how specifically Chinese investment would be something bad. However, they only generalize investment. We asked them to prove to us how Chinese investment will be bad when there's American investment already in Africa, when there's French investment in Africa. They come up here and they tell us how Chinese is a bad power and how Chinese people or Chinese investment has got ulterior motives. They tell us about cheap labor. They tell us about, the bad things which Chinese investment does. And fair and fine. And we agree with them and we engage with them on that point. However, they need to prove to us how that is bad in a nation where American investment is doing the same. They needed to prove to us how Chinese investment is going to do worse than the American investment that is already there in terms of colonialism. We come up here and tell you that there's already American investment which is polarizing. There's already American investment, there's already French investment which is doing modern day colonialism. And Chinese investment, if it does the same, we feel like it's already there, right? We come up here and we prove to you, panel, that Chinese investment will bring rapid growth in terms of the economy, will bring faster growth in terms of the infrastructure, and we value that. We come up here and tell you about diplomatic relations. We were saying that other countries have been scared to invest into Africa. And when a first world country like China invests into Africa, it incentivizes other countries to want to invest in Africa. Because when a big country like China, a first world country like China, invests into Africa's, it also gives other countries, such as countries like Sweden, Switzerland, that incentives, that confidence to also invest into Africa. And that's what we value. Panel, we have proven to you what this debate requires. This debate, which is a support debate, required us to prove to you that in the end goal, it's going to have more goods than bads. And we prove to you, we tell you that we're going to have a booming economy, which is going to be a better life for all Africans, for all African businesses. We prove to you that it is going to be a better source for infrastructure and for the people in general, meaning that in the end, when we have that investment, we believe that we are going to have a better world in the end. And we prove that, panel. We therefore come up and even tell you that even if China was to ask for its investments back, China always gives favorable terms, meaning that when China has given us money and our economy is now booming, we believe that we'll be able to pay back the investments which China has given to us. We will be able to pay back the debts better. Panel, we can see that right now because our economy is bad, we're not able to even pay back debts that we had from a while ago because of the bad economy. Panel, they needed to prove to us why would they needed to prove to us why would American investment and French investment or investment from other countries, why we do not need Chinese investment. And panel, we come up and tell you that in a world where we have investment from other countries, we want Chinese investment because we feel like it will boost us even further. We feel like American investment and French investment and investment from other countries has only gotten us so far. And we feel like Chinese investment will finish what these other countries have started because Chinese has got the most billionaires in the world. They've got the rapid economy. They've got the most technological advances in the world. And we feel like Africa, we also need that. And we feel like they owe us that, especially after colonialism, especially after taking everything from us. We feel like they owe us that investment back because we are struggling as an economy. And panel, they fail to engage with us on our points. When we ask them PORs and when we ask them to prove general things, when we tell them that why should they single out China as being a bad country when other countries like America are also investing in Africa? They don't prove that to us. And panel, we come up here and we give you 3 points and we analyze them brilliantly. Panel, we only get 1 point from opposition and it's not even well analyzed. The only point which they bring to us is the point on how there's cheap labor from China. And we prove to you that America also has cheap labor. So we feel like this evil which they're talking about is mutually exclusive in both worlds. We feel like it is something which is not constant. Cheap labor is not a constant. We ask you, panel, that should we stop seeking investment just because of cheap labor? Should we stop asking for investment just because we are scared of cheap labor? Cheap labor is not a constant. And we come up here and we prove to you why China, why we value that, why we support, why we want it. We prove that to you, panel, and they don't even prove to us, they don't even paint to us a world that in the end there'll be harmful benefits than good benefits. They don't tell us that. They don't even prove to us how their world looks like when China comes in. They don't even give us those levels of analysis. And that's why we win this debate. With that in mind, we've never been proud to propose the motion. Thank you.